Fugly interior design trends. Fugly interiors, interior design practices, things that people do in their homes that just don't work. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. And I'm going to be talking about things that have been really popular for ages and then have gone out of style, come back in, things that I just think are heinous and you really don't need them in your house. If you've got them, I'm sorry, but these are just my opinions, and yeah, it's just how I feel about certain interior design trends. And you can take what I say with a grain of salt because you never know. I might come back to another video and say that I actually like these things now. But for today, for 2023, these are some of the interior design trends that I am really not liking at all. So yeah, let's get started. So the first interior design trend that is definitely out, not coming back, should never have come in, and that is like faux gold tapware, faux gold metal, faux brass, anything faux in general, but specifically I'm talking about this kind of like gold tapware that you see in kitchens. It's like through all the magazines, through all the online publications, and I don't know why, because seriously, if you're trying to make your house look good, I feel like this just makes it look cheap and nasty and is not really going to do anything for you. Instead, I would say go for chrome, and I know that a lot of people are probably going to think, what the hell are you talking about? Chrome is so outdated. But I actually think that like chrome and silver, stainless steel is like really classic and you can't go wrong with it. And if you do it properly, it can look amazing, especially in kitchens. I love stainless steel. Growing up, we had a stainless steel kitchen. My family was into cooking and there were a few chefs in the family. So we had a stainless steel benchtop, stainless steel sort of elements in the kitchen. And it just, I never got sick of it. I always thought it looked really cool. And when you pair it with like warmer finishes, it can also look really amazing. Similarly, I think that like silver tapware, polished chrome, or even like nickel can look really great, especially as opposed to doing like a faux gold finish. I think that it can be a bit more understated and you're less likely to get sick of it, I think. And that's always a positive in my mind. I think in particular, I also really like silver tapware or chrome tapware when it's like a traditional finish. So if you're going for that sort of look, I definitely think it can look, yes, it can look really great in like a true brass, like an aged brass, but I also really love it in a polished chrome. And I think it's just that like, I don't know, as I said, like it's just that long lasting sort of finish that you're not going to get sick of. It's not really like the one thing that your eye is drawn to in your kitchen or your bathroom, and it just sort of blends in and works pretty well with any finish, I think. So maybe if you're looking to upgrade your tapware, your metals in your house, think about doing silver or chrome or nickel or stainless steel, as opposed to the sort of general trend that everyone does of just like the brass, the fake brass, if you know what I'm talking about. Okay, I've spoken about this one before, and that is minimalist, stark white interiors, just everything like beige on beige. I think this is one that's a bit of a contentious one because some people really love it and some people really hate it. And there was definitely a phase where I was really into like the all neutrals and the really kind of like minimal pared back interior. But as I've kind of progressed through my career, as I've progressed in terms of my personal style, I definitely love like a bit more of an eclectic, colorful, characterful sort of interior that kind of tells more of a story. Yes, sorry, and on the side note, I am understanding the irony that I'm sitting in front of beige walls, but the apartment's a mess at the moment because it's just been painted and there's crap everywhere. And this is the only room that has decent lighting, and it's 5:30 at night, so just bear with me. Yeah, so colorful, characterful spaces that have lots of interesting details and stories to tell, I think is always so much more interesting than having just a neutral palette. I think that you can still have a neutral palette in certain ways. It's just about making it so that it's still interesting and not just like, you know, a bland room. I feel like we see a lot of the sort of like neutral, minimal tones on Pinterest. It's like the Pinterest home, and it's kind of like taken over, and every like second image that I come across is a Pinterest home where it's all really neutral interiors. Everything's overly styled. There's no sort of sense that someone has lived there. It almost looks like a render of a home as opposed to an actual home. I'm all for sort of having things curated, but I think it's also so important to have spaces that have a story, that have personality, and that reflect the people that are living there. So yeah, I would definitely say that minimal, all white, neutral interiors are definitely out. And it's something that I will never go back to because it's so boring. And I really think people do that often because they're afraid to use color or don't know how to use it or don't know how to sort of inject personality into the space. And if you just learn a little bit about it, you can make such a big difference in your home. So that is the second interior design trend that I'm really just not a fan of and never will be, I don't think, unless you can prove me wrong, but that is where I'm staying with that one. So minimal, white, washed out spaces are out. This is kind of, again, I think kind of a contentious one, or one that people either love or hate. And it's not that I hate this one. I think that this one, when it's done right, can be really good. And that is overdressing a bed. I'm kind of sick of seeing like a million throw cushions, like a million different layers of blankets, only because I've never really been into that myself for my bed. I like to have quite a pared back, I guess, set of like bedding. Is that what we're calling that? Like to have sort of a pared back set of like pillowcases and bedding and not having too much on there. I find it can be really busy and a little bit distracting sometimes. I don't think that the bed always needs to be the focal point in the bedroom. I think you can pare it back and draw attention to other interesting objects or furniture pieces in the room. And for me personally, it just like feels like a really big effort to, one, make the bed with all that stuff on it every day, and two, take it all off before you go to bed. I don't know if I'm just being a bit pedantic, but I feel like a pared back bed situation is just as interesting as one that is kind of overdressed. But I think, as I said, you can draw attention to other things in the room and still have everything work really cohesively. You can have a color theme, you can have prints and patterns still, but just not having like 1,000 things on the bed. Oftentimes, because I think the bed takes up such a huge, I guess, amount of space in the room, we feel like that's the thing that we want to draw attention to. But you can do that in other ways, whether that's doing, you know, a really interesting bed head and keeping the bedding simple. I think like a really nice striped bed head or print or really cool and interesting fabric is always so nice on a bed head. And then to have kind of like pared back bedding looks really good, even if it's just like, it can be neutral. It doesn't have to be a pattern. It can be a block color, and maybe you have different pillowcases or you have a quilt on the end of your bed that's kind of interesting. But I don't think you need to have like a different colored sheet, a flat sheet, a doona cover, a quilt, like a million pillows. I just think it's really clashy, and it's not necessarily something that always turns out looking better than something that is pared back. I think less is more is what I'm trying to say. That was very long-winded, but that's what I'm trying to say. Less is more when it comes to your bedding. So I feel like in the past couple of years, there's been like a real spike in like curved furniture and curved squiggly whatever homewares or interior design in general. And I'm all for like an organic form and things having a little bit of a free form to them, but I've seen it so much and everyone has kind of just like regurgitated everyone else's sort of design so much that I feel like I haven't seen anything that's really original and has caught my eye in an interesting way. So the trend that I think is out, at least for me, is like curves and squiggles in homewares and furniture. I'm really far more drawn to things that are sort of geometric and have clean lines. And I think there's still so much to be said for something that is really kind of, I guess, humble, and it's all about the details, and you're not necessarily drawn to it because it's kind of a wacky shape, but you have to look a little bit closer to see the craftsmanship and how things are made really beautifully, as opposed to just, yeah, like a huge squiggly mirror on the wall, if that makes sense. So I think geometric lines are in, and kind of wobbly, organic, curved furniture and things are out for now. As I said at the start of this video, it's not everything. There are definitely things that I still love within that realm, but right now, generally speaking, from an interior point of view, I'm really over the archway, I'm really over like the bubbly sofas, and I think it's time to come back to the classics a little bit. Come back to, you know, things that have that long-lasting appeal. I don't know if you agree with me. This is just, as I said, you know, just putting it out there. So curves are out, lines, geometric forms are in. Okay, the next trend that I think, actually let me rephrase that. This is not a trend, this is just a material that I am sick of seeing. And that is stone. And yes, there's going to be backlash, but I don't really care, because while I love stone and I think it's an amazing natural resource, I have seen it used so much that, like the previous trend, I'm really sick of seeing it. I think people use way too much stone in their homes. They use it on every surface possible. And quite frankly, I think it just detracts from the beauty of what it is when there's too much of it. Again, I feel like less is more. I've seen so many stone coffee tables, side tables, shelving units. It's used on kitchen islands. It's used all throughout the bathroom. And I think it's just been done to death. And I think that one material that is making a comeback, not necessarily for surfaces such as kitchen countertops, but that is glass. And not to say that glass ever really went out, but I think it's definitely having a moment in terms of returning to the classics, like what I've been saying throughout this whole video. I think there's so much to be said for brands like Glass Italia, who make the most incredible furniture out of glass. If you haven't seen them, I'm going to put some pictures up here for you, don't worry. And I think glass sort of light fixtures and fittings that kind of have that nod to like the Art Deco or vintage sort of feel to them, like a lot of sort of French glass blown light fittings like sconces and things I think are really cool. I've seen a lot of really amazing side tables and coffee tables made from glass that are really interesting. And the thing I love about it is it's obviously transparent, but you can always inject color into it. They're always really kind of a little bit more understated in terms of you don't really see it at first. And there are so many amazing pieces of like glass furniture and homewares. Vases are another one that are always so amazing, and they're always pretty much one of a kind. There are so many different things you can get, like Italian Murano glass. Glassware was a really big thing, and I feel like it's very much sort of making a comeback in some ways. If you haven't seen it, again, here are some photos. I think that collecting glass pieces is always going to be worth the while. I don't think glass is something that's ever really going to go out. Whereas stone, I think it's so beautiful because it is a natural material, but oftentimes there are a lot of like quite eccentric stones or stones that are kind of like a fad. I think stones like the Calicut viola, which were like a really big trend, I think a lot of people often fall into that trap, specifying these stones because they are a trend, and after a while you kind of get sick of looking at them. You bought them solely for the fact that you wanted that to be the statement piece in your home. When once that fad kind of has its moment, then you start to think, do I actually even like this? Is it something that I actually like looking at every day? Which always comes back to that point of make sure you pick things that you truly enjoy looking at, not like a trend or a social media fad or, you know, whatever it is that you're going for. Always try to lean into the things that you like, whether they're on trend or not, because more often than not, you're going to end up loving it way more than something that was kind of here for 2 seconds and then gone. So yeah, that's my view on that. I think stone is kind of needs to take a step back, and also because it is a natural resource and it gets used to death. And I think it's really fun to be able to think of other ways of using different materials in maybe non-conventional ways, or just getting a bit more experimental and playful and creative when picking the materials that we have in our home. So anyway, those are just some interior design trends, interior design styles, I guess practices that I'm really not into. And as I said, it's just my opinion. I'm just spitballing here. That was probably a very incoherent sort of rambling submission of what I think about interiors in some way or another. But let me know what you think. If you agree with any of these, or if you think I'm just some crazy lady. But anyway, See you in the next video. Bye.